What you may think is a disappointment, a person that walked away, a friend that betrayed you, a coworker that's trying to make you look bad. You may not like that, but you couldn't reach your destiny without them. It's all a part of God's plan to get you to where you're supposed to be. David would only be known as a shepherd boy if it wasn't for Goliath. Goliath was strategically placed in David's path, not to defeat him, but to promote him. Without Goliath, David would have never taken the throne. Don't complain about your enemies. It may look like a setback, but really it's a setup for God to get you to your throne. After all, God could have used King Saul to promote David. Saul had the authority. He could have moved on Saul's heart, told him, promote that young man. But God chose to bless David not through his friends, but through his enemies. That's why we don't have to play up to people, try to convince them to like us. Hopefully they'll give me a good break. No, God doesn't have to use your friends. He can use your enemies, your critics, the ones that are trying to push you down. He can use them to push you up. And it's interesting, when David defeated Goliath, you never hear any more about Goliath. Goliath was created for David's purpose. Part of his destiny was to establish who David was. And just as God has divine connections lined up for you, people to encourage you, push you forward, He's also lined up people that will try to stop you, discourage you, try to make you look bad. There are Goliaths ordained to come across your path. And if you don't understand this principle, you'll get discouraged. God, why is this happening to me? That opposition wasn't meant to stop you. It was meant to establish you. When you overcome it, you will not only step into a new level of your destiny, but everyone around you will see the favor of God is on your life. In 2002, we received word that the Houston Rockets basketball team was moving out of this building, and the city was thinking about selling it. We needed a larger auditorium. When I heard that, something came alive on the inside. I knew it was supposed to be ours. And word got out in the city that we were interested in it. And there was all kinds of debate as to what should happen to this building. And a friend of mine was at a business luncheon sitting with some high-powered executives. One of these executives, a very influential man, found out that my friend attends Lakewood. He started talking about the Compact Center and about how against us he was, about what a terrible thing this would be for the city, and how no church should ever have this building, on and on. Some other people at the table joined in, kind of laughing, making fun, talked about how Lakewood didn't have a chance in the world to get it. Finally, this executive looked at my friend and said very sarcastically, "It will be a cold day in hell before Lakewood ever gets that building." My friend called me afterward and told me about the conversation. Said, "Thanks a lot for the good news. Appreciate that encouragement." But the truth is, that conversation was ordained by the Creator. He was one of those Goliaths God had strategically placed in our path. And when I heard about how against us he was, I was already determined, but something rose up in me. I had a holy determination. I had a new fire, a new resolve. And every time things got tough, looked like it wasn't going to work out, I would be tempted to get discouraged. I could hear that phrase, "a cold day in hell." I'd get my passion right back. Wouldn't take me 5 seconds. Sometimes God will put an enemy in your life to keep you stirred up. He'll allow critics, doubters, discouragers, even some haters. So when you feel tired and think you want to give up, you'll keep pressing forward, shaking it off, not because you feel like it, but because you don't want to give your enemies the joy of seeing you defeated. Not out of spite, not out of pride, it's a holy determination. God uses the negative to keep us stirred up. And that business leader that was so against us, he doesn't realize it, but God used him more than he used my friends. He was one of the most instrumental people in us getting this building. And the funny thing is, he wasn't for us, He was against us. God used our enemies to bless us. If I ever see that man, I need to buy him dinner. McDonald's probably. Some of my enemies, I feel like I need to write them a check. If they hadn't have been against me, I wouldn't have prayed so hard. If they hadn't have made fun, I would have given up sooner. If they hadn't have told me I couldn't do it, didn't have what it takes, I might have been complacent, settled where I was. It was their opposition that pushed me forward. Many times, God will use your enemies to catapult you to success more than your friends. David said, God prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Notice, when God brings you through the opposition, He's not going to do it in private. He's going to do it where all of those enemies can see it. This building is located on the second busiest freeway in the nation. You can't drive in this city very long without seeing what God has done. And that man that was against us, I can only imagine every time he passes by, something whispers in his ear, it must be a cold day in hell, because there they are. Maybe today you're facing some kind of enemy. Not just a person, an enemy in your health, in your finances, in a relationship. Doesn't look like it's ever going to work out. Have this new perspective. Right now, God is preparing the table. The angels are taking the food out of the oven. Gabriel's putting his finishing touches on that meal. Any moment, you're going to hear the dinner bell ringing. God's going to say, it's your time. Here's the table. Here's the meal I prepared for you. It's not going to be a little fast food meal hidden over in the corner nobody notices. No, God is preparing a table like He did for David, like He did for us, to where not just all of your friends see it, but even those enemies, the doubters, the discouragers, the ones that said you couldn't do it, they're going to see you blessed, promoted, vindicated, living your dreams in a place of honor, in influence. In one sense, God used Judas more than He used the other disciples. Judas was ordained to betray Jesus. That was his purpose, to try to stop Him. And it wasn't just his idea, it was the plan of God. At the time, it seemed like a bad break. But if he had not betrayed Jesus, there wouldn't have been a crucifixion. Without the cross, there wouldn't have been a resurrection. Without the resurrection, we wouldn't have redemption, no salvation. And we celebrate Mary, the mother of Jesus, giving birth in the manger. We celebrate John baptizing Jesus, the dove coming down from heaven. But the man who betrayed Jesus, the one who sold Him for 30 pieces of silver, was just as critical a part of His destiny, if not more so than the others. What am I saying? Don't complain about the person that betrayed you. If they walked away, they didn't set you back, they set you up for the fullness of your destiny. If they lied about you, tried to push you down, overlooked you, it may not have been fair. But if God allowed it, He knows how to use it for your good. What if Jesus would have gotten upset? Said, God, I'm your son. How could you let this man betray me? He's one of my disciples. No, Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray Him, but He didn't try to stop him. He didn't try to talk him out of it. He knew that betrayal was a part of His divine destiny. And too often, we fight against everything that doesn't go our way, get upset, bitter. God, why is this happening? The longer I live, the more I realize nothing happens by accident. Even the opposition, if you'll keep the right attitude, God will use it to your advantage. I was talking to a well-known minister one time. For over 50 years, he had gone around the world doing so much good. Most people were very appreciative. But in his hometown, the local newspaper was never for him. They were always finding fault. He could do 100 things right. They wouldn't report that. They'd find the one thing they didn't like, make a big deal out of it. This went on year after year. He had an interesting perspective. He said, if it hadn't been for that newspaper, I would have never accomplished so much. I thought, what do you mean? He said that newspaper not only kept me on my knees, but it gave me the fuel to keep pressing forward to prove to them that they were wrong. He went on to build a beautiful university in that city. Tens of thousands of young people have attended. And toward the end of his life, when he was just about done, all of a sudden the newspaper had a change of heart. They wrote this big front page article celebrating everything that he had done. It was almost like God waited on purpose. God knew that enemy, even though my friend didn't like it, it was making him better. It was keeping him stirred up, made him more determined, more resilient. And some of the things that we don't like, we're asking God to get rid of. If He removed them right now, we wouldn't reach our highest potential. That opposition is making you stronger. Those people trying to stop you, the betrayal, the disappointment, that cannot keep you from your destiny. God has the final say. And if He hasn't removed it yet, that means He's going to use it for your good. He strategically places the Goliaths, the Judases, the opposition. Without Goliath, you can't take your throne. Without Judas, you won't reach your highest potential. Without the naysayers, you wouldn't become all you were created to be.